So we've heard from the representations from Mr. Ayato from the multilateral side, from Eric Francia of ASEN and Manny Rubio for the corporate side. Now, what we will do is try to understand the underground realities of accelerating energy transition, the innovations that are making it possible, and also what collective action is needed to overcome any barriers. So maybe I can start with Manny and Eric, if you may. Eric, you mentioned about energy addition, and that's very important because there's no way that the Philippine economy will not grow. So we badly need that capacity. But at the same time, there has to be investment towards our future. That's why energy transition comes in. So my question is, how do we reconcile the push for decarbonization and at the same time balance that with the urgent need to add capacity?
Thank you, Benji. Trust me when I say it is very tempting to give up on energy transition because of the pressure for energy addition, right? Coal plants are likely going to be still built, those that are exempted from the moratorium or carve-out. Gas plants, we need all of the above, but basically because of the growing needs, right? So where we are coming from is because I do get these questions. Then why shut down a perfectly healthy coal plant, right? Still young and so forth, right? At age 15. And to me, the answer is number one, we do have the renewable replacement, albeit it's still more expensive. But if somebody else is willing to fund so that when we shut it down, we replace it with clean energy, why not? If no one else is going to fund this, then there's no way we will do it, right? But if the financing mechanisms are there, and hopefully the financing over time will become less and less significant because of the increasing competitiveness in the renewable energy inputs, including storage and so forth, right? So it is a principled stand, Benji, because otherwise I guarantee you, we will take the eye off the ball if we don't try our best to demonstrate that it can be done and hopefully the financing will also scale up. And it's not easy, right? We're trying to build the market, the carbon markets and so forth. But even that is very challenging. That's why it's very tempting to give up. But we're not going to give up. This is a fight this is a mission that's worth fighting for.
Thank you, Eric. And in addition to financing, I guess the cherry on top will be the transition credits because that will really add additional revenue streams to the company. What's your view on that, Manny?
Well, I also believe that the tipping point for energy transition to really become a reality is when a combination of variable renewable energy and combined with any form of energy storage, right? The most popular is, I guess, the battery energy storage system, no? Becomes just as competitive as any source of base load. No? As long as the combination is base load, then you can compare like for like. Then I guess that's it. You can really move forward with the clean options. But it's going to be I think it's going to be a shift in the technology that I don't think is going to be possible for a variable renewable energy coupled with an energy storage to provide base load to be competitive, not probably even in the next 20 years, right? But we've done that with TerraSolar for mid-merit, and specifically for this one, a delivery from 8 in the morning to 9 in the evening. You change the delivery time, then the combination becomes different, very different from what we have now. So I think that's a step forward towards an energy transition, a possible energy transition in the near future. Although we're operating coal plants still, in fact, I'm investing in a coal plant when it wins an auction, to an base load auction. One of the conditions set by DOE is that we need to shut it down if it will still be burning coal by 2050, and we accepted that, right? Because I believe that even with our existing units, not even at Iwana, market forces or regulatory forces will determine how these plants will run, maybe 2040, 2045. That's why we've also accelerated the depreciation to prepare for that eventuality. And I think one thing positive that's working, although there's still a lot of things that we need to work on, is that the DOE is setting up policies with regard to portfolio components of the energy. But I think one thing that should be done really is to understand the impact on the system cost of electricity once this portfolio is defined. Di ba? Sabi nila, 50% of renewable energy by 2040. I don't know how much, there's no definition, how much coal, how much LNG. But at the end of the day, they define a certain requirement to make up that portfolio, and it becomes a form of subsidy because you throw away the cost of the concept of least cost. No? Then you actually just make sure that you comply with the capacities that will be mandated in the portfolio. But then consumers need to be aware of the impact of that kind of policy in terms of how much will my energy cost, no? And that becomes a reality.
So, I guess based on what I've heard, we want to keep the lights on, but at the same time, we don't want to lose focus on, I guess, the future by investing in cleaner energy options. Which brings me to Meralco Power Gen's. This is a follow-up question. On your strategy on transition energy sources, I think part of your strategy is exploration of nuclear and also green energy. If I may ask, can you share something on those?
Well, our role really is not in the exploration of nuclear, but we're part of the group that's participating in the discussions to consider nuclear as part of the portfolio in the future. And that future is probably earliest 2035 to 2040. Well, DOE is saying that by 2032 they're expecting nuclear already in the portfolio, but I think we're a long way from actually putting up a nuclear power plant. We just the Clean Atom Bill was just approved. I think there's still 3 bills concerning nuclear that are still pending in Congress. We haven't even appointed the commissioners that would make up PhilAtom. No? But the discussions are ongoing. Meralco is participating in workshops and discussion of options, no, with already existing suppliers of nuclear, CANDU, Acacia, PC, right? Even small modular reactors. And in preparation, we've also said today we have already like 12 Meralco team members that are in various universities across the world, no, taking up a diploma course on nuclear engineering. But when they come back in 2 years, there's still no nuclear plants, so I'll probably put them in a gas plant or a coal plant. But the thing is, at least no, the intent is there, and I really believe that nuclear is really an option for the Philippines if really you want a carbon-free or carbon-free technology.
Thank you, Manny. I think Philippines need bold leaders like you and Eric to really lead the energy transition and also energy addition. I think there's been good progress already, but equally there remains some challenges. So I'd like to turn to Hayato, and my question is, what role do you think can climate finance realistically play in accelerating energy transition?
Thank you, Benji, for that question. So, climate finance, I think, is really the key in accelerating energy transition. And I think there's already quite a few, climate finance that is available, in the this world. One of the key financing sources that ADB or the multilateral development banks are accessing is the climate investment funds, particularly the Accelerating Coal Transition Program. Philippines was provided 500 million of those concessional sources, and ADB together with IFC and also World Bank, and we're trying to deploy these climate finance. So there's climate finance available. However, one of the I guess the challenges is that there's sometimes challenges in deploying these finances. These concessional finance is critical. We need low-cost financing. Low-cost client financing are provided by philanthropies, by national governments, and they also come with many conditions, and understandably so. And I'm sure, I don't know, maybe IFC colleagues can speak to it later, but we need to manage the expectations of our donors, contributors, while also being grounded on reality. So energy transition is not something that can happen overnight, and I think we already know that. But sometimes the people who buy these financing want some immediate outcomes. And this is where we sometimes face those challenges.
Yeah, that's loud and clear, Ayato. But what would make a project bountiful from a multilateral point of view? Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned about geothermal exploration. I think that's part of maximizing indigenous source of power. But how else can that, I guess, financing be raised and make it more bankable from a multilateral point of view?
So maybe I'll probably mention geothermal and also touch upon the energy transition mechanism. So for geothermal, as I mentioned in my presentation, we're trying to learn from the experiences of other similar geothermal facilities. So I think some of them were successful, some of them were not so. Especially if the facility said they don't want to lose any money at all, they become very risk averse, and unfortunately, no one wants to take those facilities. So we try to strike the right balance so that the private sector developers are correctly incentivized. So really having a close discussion with the industry players, with the developers, to come up with to strike the right balance for the risk and return. I think that's one of the keys. And sort of going back to the energy transition, I think Eric also mentioned that these are all bespoke transactions. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of solution is not possible. You need to have technical studies and detailed grid impact studies for each transaction, for each coal retirement. And that takes time, and that needs support from donors. But these are nitty-gritty details, but we need to do them one by one to accelerate the energy transition.
Thank you. Well, other than financing, I'd like to turn to Eric and Manny. What are other bottlenecks, whether in access, structure, or scale, and how can this be addressed?
Well, happy to go first, Manny. Feel free to chime in. But I think regulatory matters, policy is critical. Of course, grid is an obvious one, right? But on the policy, I think we do have a good market framework. We're one of the few countries in Asia that has an open and competitive framework. That's a plus. We have strong renewable policy. gas is work in progress, etc. and so on. But I think what is perhaps something to improve on is a more stable regulatory environment, more predictable application of these rules, and equally importantly, the enforcement of these policies. So predictability and enforcement, I think, is critical. I'm sure Manu will be able to provide the nuances and the details there. This is a touchy topic. So yeah, and then the grid, right? But we have an opportunity as well, including the incorporation of battery storage to declutter some of the issues of the grid. So let me pause there.
Okay, I think on regulatory frameworks, I think the key really is the consistent application of the rules and of the law. I think sometimes there are changes at the middle of the game, something that investors and developers are have not anticipated. Case in point is probably the FIT escalation. Many actually invested in FIT projects in 2014, 2015, 2016 with the expectation that the prices per rules will be escalated using certain factors, but that has been suspended. And then second, as a developer, I think one of the things that we're really struggling with is the harmonization of the national with the local laws. You have good national laws, but then when you get into the communities where you're going to build plants, the interpretation now of the mayor or the governor is quite different, and that's where you find challenges in really pushing forward with the projects. And of course, other government agencies like POI, BIR, right, DILG will help, but hopefully this kind of issues are actually resolved from day one, so you can really put up and develop these projects. To me, although we have a working wholesale electricity spot market, which is to me the bastion of PIRA. All the capacities will be sold to the spot market, but with the introduction of JIA, with the introduction of FIT, as they keep on putting new capacities as must dispatch, it distorts the pricing in the spot market because it moves the merit order dispatch to the right of the dispatch curve. I may be sounding too technical, but it short of saying, it just distorts the pricing in the spot market. The spot market should give signals when to invest in new capacities, but because of the artificial low prices in Western, that signal is actually missing today, and especially as we keep on pushing must dispatch plants, but paid outside the person. That's a problem. It's paid outside the person through a mechanism like quick all. If you look at your bill, there's a quick all, and then soon there will be a JA all account in your bill to pay for this new capacities that will be coming in as must dispatch. That's why I think when DOE really develops these policies and these projections on how to build the portfolio, I think we should be also given information is what is the expected full cost of the electricity in the system when we get to this kind of mix, say in 2030 or in 2040. The variability of solar is just so difficult to manage that you really need to have batteries, you need to have LNG plants that ramp up, not even at the pace of the variability of solar, but you need them. But then, of course, those things have costs.
Benji, if I may, and I just want to, this is something new, this is the first time I'm saying this in a forum like this, but I think the other bottleneck is our mindset. It's our way of thinking about investments. And let me explain. I'm partially guilty saying that coal is the cheapest form of reliable energy, and I think Manny will agree to that and many people will agree today. But we're not sure about that. Because when we say that LCOE, levelized cost of electricity of coal, is, let's say, around 9 or 10 US cents, or about 5 pesos. That's based on assumption that coal price is more or less going to stay relative to where it is today at about $100 plus per ton of Newcastle. You know, 20 plus years ago, the coal price was $20, right? It's 5x over 20 years. Who has a crystal ball here and can tell me that it's still going to be $100 or $500 20 years from now? No one knows for sure. You see, we're very tolerant of coal. Bahala na what the price will be. Basta today, it's this. Versus renewables, we have certainty. But it's expensive today relative to coal because renewables is fixed, right, for 20 plus years. You know, it might be the cheapest for all we know in 15 years or 10 years time. But because of our short-term orientedness, oh no, what matters now is what consumers pay today. And it's hard. That's why I'm saying it's mindset, right? It's hard to preach that, no, think long-term. Tell that to the consumer, right? So I think it's a mindset thing. Del Lazaro, former energy secretary, told me, and I'll never forget this, no? I think he was the one who vouched for a geothermal investment back during his time. That was a hard decision because it was expensive, at around 4 or 5 pesos per kilowatt hour at the time, when coal was like half the price. But look at where geothermal is, the legacy ones. They're by far the cheapest today, right? So that was the right call. So it's our mindset. No, at the end of the day, this is crystal balling. To me, scaling up renewables is a no-regret move. We could be right or wrong, but at least we're on the right side when it comes to sustainability and so forth. Short-term affordability, it's a risk, but it's not a foregone conclusion. No. The last thing I'd say to address Manny's concern, DOE, credit to them, has already gotten the ball rolling on more long-duration storage, which is the pumped hydro. It may be a tad early, right? But you know, at some point we will need pumped hydro. Maybe 2030s is still too early. We still have, it's not as if we'll shut down all the coal plants in the next decade. We're not Australia, right? But at some point that could be a long-term solution. And we're seeing a first-hand of that in Australia, for example. So there are solutions. It's not going to be easy. But I think mindset, we ought to reflect on our mindset with respect to investments.
Yeah, I agree 100% on the mindset. And I guess that's partly because also of earnings pressure on management on a quarterly basis and on an annual basis. So that's why it's easy to just choose what's cheapest, affordable at the moment. So we've discussed about the obstacles. Now let's turn to solutions. Given the barriers we have identified, what is one key strategic approach your organization to overcome these barriers? Maybe we can start with yeah.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that one. Okay, yeah, not part of the script, yes. Obviously, there's no silver bullet in energy transition. ADB, as the Multilateral Development Bank, will continue to do what we have been doing. So that's bringing in finance, bringing in knowledge, and providing technical assistance to help our clients, including government and private sector. And yeah, I think I'll keep it at that.
Well, for MGen, we're open to all the technologies that are available for us in order to transition to a cleaner future. I think energy storage and with PV cells would be one of our a main component of our portfolio. With the variability of solar, it's really important to actually manage that frequency change behind the meter, so that the consumers won't be penalized. Again, if you look at your bill, there could be ancillary services charge that's quite high, and that's because the grid really needs to manage the frequency fluctuations caused by the variability of these renewable energy sources. we also don't want to. We also want to make sure that what happened in Spain and Portugal doesn't happen in the Philippines. That they actually have a stronger grid compared to ours. No? And then LNG, of course, is something that or gas, not just LNG, is something that I think will have a major role in the Philippine energy portfolio. We're connected we have our own terminal for LNG. We're still connected to the Malampaya pipeline through Ilihan. There's nothing stopping us from connecting the other plant, Excel Energy, to that as soon as we understand how much gas will be coming out from the new exploration being done by Prime. But again, also at the end of the day, is of course nuclear. That is all possible for the Philippines. But most importantly, I think we really need to prepare our people, our team members, to be able to handle all of these technological shifts. And in MGen, we're starting that now.
In the case of ASEAN, we remain steadfast in our commitment to scaling up renewables in a reliable and hopefully affordable manner, despite the headwinds that besets the sector today. The environment is not ideal for renewables with a barrage of fossil fuel, the pivot of US and fossil fuel, elevated interest rates, and so forth, right? You know, last Saturday, our chairman of Ayala Port Plaza gave a great inspiring message to the UANP graduates, and his key message was quite powerful and resonates with me, which is choose difficult, right? You know, if you had a principled stand, no matter how difficult the decision is, you know, choose difficult. Don't go the easy way. We have chosen difficult in ASEAN. We have been patient because this is the long game, right? Benji, you're very right. The market sometimes, or a lot of times, are short-term oriented, quarter by quarter by quarter. But you know, we have put in 35 billion pesos, for example, on upfront investments across at least four different areas, locations, where we have oversized our upfront transmission connection infrastructure that are scalable. We are carrying a lot of upfront costs, believing that we will be able to scale this up with the help of battery storage and so forth. And so that's choosing difficult. But you know, if we don't do this, right? If we don't think big and think long term, then I think our chances will just become slimmer. We believe that it will pay off in the long term as long as you are on the side of good, and we have high conviction that choosing difficult is the right way to go.
Thanks, Eric. So choose difficult, change in mindset, and also scale renewable. For MGen, focus on also transition, and also the critical role of climate finance from ADB. So I guess that wraps up panel one. Thank you very much, Eric, Manny, and Alaka for your insights.
So thank you, Benji, and to our three great speakers for the first part of our program. And now we move on to the second part of our program, which focuses on green financing. Our first speaker is the International Finance Corporation's new country manager for the Philippines. She had a varied career in banking before she joined IFC in 2012. As a banker working in international financial institutions such as Citibank and ABN AMRO, she worked across industries and markets. This experience held her in good stead when she joined IFC as part of its financial institutions group covering the Middle East and North Africa region. Her role at IFC encompassed both investment and advisory services. She has services working in challenging, fragile, and post-conflict market. Previously, she serves as IFC's country manager for Sri Lanka and Maldives, and more recently, as an FCS advisor for the African region. Furthermore, she also held the position of IFC country manager for the Kenya cluster countries, covering Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, Tanzania, and Uganda based in Nairobi. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Amina Arif.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I know it's been in the afternoon. Hopefully, I won't take too much of your time. I'm very pleased to be here. As you heard, I'm the new country manager for ISC. So, new means I landed in Manila about 8 days ago to relocate. So, very, very new. And you will please excuse me for whatever mistakes